I was driving along the road back to Provincetown with my sister. We had just met some friends in Wellfleet for dinner. It was a beautiful day, but as we drove along Route 6, we could see the clouds rolling in and the winds were picking up. All of a sudden, I heard a huge bang and shattering glass. A large tree branch busted through my back window. My car started to make an awful sound and was no longer drivable since part of the branch was stuck in the wheel well. This was many years before cell phones, and we were still miles to go to get to our rental cottage. We had no choice but to walk along the road. It was pretty desolate back then between Provincetown and Wellfleet. We only had to walk a little way before seeing a house setting back a bit off the road. We were pretty scared, but didn't have any options. The house was dark, and we worked up the courage to knock. No one answered. Desperate, I turned the doorknob, and it was unlocked. We went into the house and hollered, "Hello? Hello, is anyone here? We need to use your phone and call a tow truck." We quickly realized that no one was home. Cold and soaking wet, we decided to stay for a bit and figure out a plan. The rain continued, and we didn't have much choice other than to try to get comfortable until the storm was over. We found some blankets and got wrapped up in them and sprawled out on the floor. The couch had holes in it, so the floor seemed like the best option. Plus, we didn't want to get too comfortable. I wanted to get out of there as soon as we could. We both must have fallen asleep. I don't know the exact time, must have been after 1 a.m. and before 4 a.m. I awoke to a bright light. I thought it was someone coming, like maybe a helpful police officer. I yelled, "Hello, we're over here." I heard nothing back, but the light got brighter. All of a sudden, the room reeked of that infamous low tide smell. A figure emerged. It looked like a man. He was soaking wet. I shouted, "Is this your house? We're sorry. Our car broke down and needed shelter from the storm. We didn't think anyone lived here." There was no response, but I could see the man was sad and had an eerie glow to him. He was dripping wet. My sister, terrified with fear, began to say the Lord's Prayer. I tried to calm her down and say it was just a bad dream. The figure was quickly gone, almost as quick as it came. My sister kept reciting every prayer she was taught until she fell asleep. As soon as daylight started to break, we got the hell out of there. On the way out, my sister almost slipped from a puddle on the floor. She was so frantic and yelled, "Hurry up," but I noticed a piece of seaweed by the fireplace that I can swear wasn't there when we arrived. I grabbed the seaweed and stuffed it in my pocketbook. I walked to a payphone and was able to call for a tow. The tow truck driver gave us the scoop on the house. He couldn't believe we stayed there. He mentioned that it had been abandoned now for a couple of decades.
It was the old Allen house. The Allen family had lived on Cape Cod forever. They had a son, Thomas. Old man, Allen and Thomas didn't get along all that well, always butting heads and fighting. So when Thomas was just old enough, in his 20s, he got a job on a fishing boat and went out to sea. The ship got caught in a storm on his first outing and Thomas went overboard. He drowned at sea. And Mrs. Allen died soon after due to her aching heart. Mr. Allen was crushed and could no longer stay in the house. He sold it. But the new family that moved in didn't stay there for over a year. They just packed up and left in the middle of the night, and the house has stood vacant ever since.
I could not believe it. I must have seen Thomas's ghost. Now, the puddle on the floor, the stench of the sea, and this piece of seaweed I found on the way out of the house all made sense. I kept the seaweed in my purse and put it in a plastic bag once I got home. I had almost forgotten about it when I finally met a friend of a friend who was a marine biologist. I told him my story, and he asked to see the seaweed. He looked it over carefully for a minute or two and said for sure that this is rare seaweed that only grows near decaying remains of drowned corpses.